Let's talk some sports, baby.
And remember, make tomorrow better than today and make today better than yesterday. And you know what we gonna do. We gonna holler at you until next time, baby.
All right, fellas, let's go ahead and keep it on football, but zoom out a little bit and check on the status of COVID-19 in the sport. Of course, it's no secret that COVID has continued to impact scheduling and preparation of teams in both college and the NFL ranks. The NFL approved a resolution today, actually, to expand the playoffs to 16 games if necessary, but it hasn't been implemented yet. College football has had 10 games canceled over the weekend due to coronavirus, and this weekend's big game against Alabama and LSU has been canceled for now with a tough reschedule ahead. So, Jay, how have these leagues handled business so far? And with the numbers back on the rise, how can they better mitigate the issue to finish the season?
I think the NFL for the most part has done okay. They've had a few hiccups here and there, particularly when you think about Tennessee. I think the Tennessee Titans have probably been the biggest culprit, and they've, NFL has had to, move some things around for them. And you've got a few other teams here and there, and you've had some isolated incidents. I know we're going to get into Pittsburgh a little bit later with, the news that came down earlier with them. But for the most part, I think they're okay. But I am glad that they're being somewhat proactive in case they do end up having to, cancel games. That will expand the playoffs a little more. I do want to caveat this though. If you're a fan of one of them middling, well below average NFC East teams, don't worry about it. Like, you only get one team regardless. They could bring the playoffs to like 20 teams and you're still getting one. Don't worry about it. But the NFL's done I think they've done a fairly good job. Is there room for improvement? I'm sure there is, as evidenced by these massive fines that the Las Vegas Raiders are being issued. Pittsburgh got one. There's some things you for sure can be probably a little bit better. But I think they've done an okay job. And as you can see, we're about to be in week 10. So I think the NFL will be fine. I think the issues going on in the college ranks are probably a little bit more concerning. You're seeing some cancellations now. You're seeing postponements. You're seeing a lot of positive tests. I mean, we've talked about seems to be quite a few head coaches who have come down with this, and I'm not quite sure what why the NFL seems to be doing a bit better. Maybe it could be, instead of not only the virus people are suffering from, maybe it could be. I was telling Drink this earlier. I think I've been diagnosed with COVID fatigue. I must admit, I'm a little bit sick of this. Maybe that could be a factor with. I think that when you look at it from a college kid's perspective, maybe that could be having an effect on them now. We just saw what happened in Notre Dame. You had Notre Dame come up with a big win over Clemson. I don't want to spoil that too much. But then you have, what happened after that. You got fans storming the field, and then you see the pictures next morning. It's like, I don't know. They might have masks on, but they sure as hell ain't 6 feet away from each other. And I've been told that's a big deal. You just look at that, and then not only that, you talk about the campus parties they was having after that. So the celebration went on and continued. So you're looking at large gatherings. We're supposed to be kind of limiting those. But you just look at Notre Dame individually, and maybe that's something that's happening, far and wide across college campuses. Maybe that sort of lifestyle is having an impact. So, I'm not quite sure how you get around that. It's a hard thing. I've talked about this with Cody briefly. People talk about coronavirus in America and why we got so many cases. I don't know. Could it be that we're the most, free society on earth? And when you try to, restrict people's freedom of movements and try to infringe on people's liberties, I imagine people got a problem with that to some extent. You talk about 14 days to slow the spread, and we're at, I don't know, what are we at, 8 months now? We're gonna have there's babies that were conceived back then. They're gonna come out into the world soon, and we still flopping around with 14 days to slow the spread. But in the end, I think I'm not all that concerned. I think mitigation. I think these football programs probably can do a little bit better. I think we really got to maybe hold players accountable, limit some of the huge gatherings unless they're team oriented. Maybe we have to tighten those up a little bit. But all in all, I really think the big issue here could be COVID fatigue.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned. I do think this weekend is probably the most concerned I'd have been throughout this football season. With all these games getting moved around. But listen, to get to your question about can the league do anything? No, the leagues are doing what they're supposed to do. I haven't seen one league, and college included, that has just sat here and been like, hey, man, we trust the American people. They're going to get it right. No, they've been doing stuff. They got all these regulations. They got all this stuff. They're putting it together, and they're finding coaches. Like, at some point, as individuals that know where we're trying to go in today's world, we should be able to just do what we need to do to get to that common goal. And that's in lies where the problem is with a lot of these events. Remember, the Tennessee Titans was out here cutting a fool. When the NFL and fans and media and everybody started turning up the heat on the Tennessee Titans, it went away. They stopped acting a fool. Had everybody just been like, oh, it's a coronavirus, people are going to get sick, what's the big deal? They probably still be popping 19, 20 dudes popping positive. But once it happened, we nipped it in the bud as a collective and said, come on, man, y'all got to get it together. This is how I'm looking at college football now. I think up until this weekend, yeah, you had some games get rescheduled. It's like over 100, it's 130 Division I programs. So, you know what I'm saying? It's going to happen, right? But I think now it's time to apply that same pressure we was applying to the NFL to college now. Come on, man. Y'all got to get it together. We got a little too much going on. You cannot tell me if you set a protocol, it's not going to work. Because like I was telling Jay earlier, Alabama has not had one game in jeopardy because of the players. I don't even know. To be honest, I don't think we had 50 players test positive all season. And the most notable person that tested positive was Nick Saban, and we found out that was a false positive because he tested negative 3 days in a row after that. So you telling me now, and it's not just Alabama, but you got other top-notch schools, they're not having this problem. But then you got other schools that's lackadaisical, that's out here having a good old time. I ain't gonna say no names, but you know, coaches got their head set off in the third quarter because they getting rolled by Auburn. And then you got players over having a good time planning their Halloween parties. Okay. And now you getting games canceled because you don't give a rip because last year you was the best team to ever do it in college football. So we still riding that wave. All right, cool. That's good to go. And so I put this on you know, lackadaisical leaders, head coaches, GMs, presidents, ADs, however, and players that probably just, like Jay said, they're just tired of this. They don't give a rip. Whatever. If COVID get me, I'm going down for the count. Here's the problem with COVID. Most diseases in the world, you don't want to get that disease because it's going to hurt you. Cancer, HIV, you know, diabetes, all these diseases, right? The thing about COVID is it's the one like illness that you have to worry about other people more than yourself. Because you yourself, you can get COVID and be like, oh, I feel great. But then you can give it to like some pregnant old woman over there and she died from it because her immune system couldn't fight it off. And you like, dang, that's crazy. I ain't even know. I thought I was good. I killed this lady. I ain't even know. Like, that's why COVID is so like unique and scary because you can, like me, for example, I can go around following no regulations for COVID and feel perfectly fine, but I'm not thinking about the person that's next to me that can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Whatever their medical situation is. So I think the reason I brought that up is because a lot of these young players, I think that's how they look at it. They're like, I feel great. What's the big deal? Coach pulled on his mask, chewed my ass, and I didn't get anything. So it is what it is. You know, let's move on. Let's play some football. That's all I care about. But then, you know, over time, they might run into somebody else that can't afford to do that, and they get sick and they critical, and you know, so on and so forth. So to wrap this up, listen, I'm not mad at no organization, no management in this situation. I think all management is doing what they need to do. They're pouring tons of money into protocol, tons of money into regulation. They're taking money from people that don't want to follow the regulations and the protocol. What more can you ask? The only thing you can ask at this point is, hey, if you guys don't want to wear your mask, we're gonna shut everything down. At some point, that's probably that's the atom bomb for sports. We're gonna just shut it down. Fold up the tents, fold up the chairs. We're out of here. That's all you can do at this point. So yeah, to answer your question, I mean, at some point it got to be on the individuals to do the right thing.
I would think, and I would also to your final point about shutting things down. I know there's been a lot of fines divvied out, but maybe if you got, you know, people that are, you know, habitually offending the whatever protocols that you have, maybe you look at some suspensions. I would think you maybe look at that. Maybe that will send a message a little more loud and clear before you actually just say, okay, we're not going to play anymore.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's hard about it is the NFL can do that better than college can because the NFL has robust contact tracing in place. I think most players have to wear some kind of identifier, like a bracelet, when they're in the building, so they can say, oh, yeah, you were in this room, then you went here, then you went here, and then see who was near you. I mean, they're getting pretty serious about it. So, but it's still, like, since we don't know, like, oh, it's not like to catch COVID, you have to go out and lick a window or something. You can just catch it, and it doesn't necessarily mean you were acting a fool or not wearing your mask or not following precautions. But I think these bigger gatherings is where you can really target and say, hey, you know, like the Titans holding their open practices to whoever wants to show up, you know, and all that crap. Like, that's the kind of things where you can go, all right, y'all, you've got to knock this off. And again, the NFL has more power than the college ranks do here because the NFL's, you know, you can take paychecks and you can be a little more controlling over the players. Because I don't know, because I think what the NFL is looking at, I don't think they would have approved this resolution for the playoffs just willy-nilly. They didn't just they didn't just wake up one day and go, you know what? Hey, just in case, let's do, like, they're looking at this down the road and they're going, okay, bye weeks are drying up. There's not many teams left with bye weeks. There aren't many weeks left if we have to reschedule. So we have 1 week open, just like most of the college conferences did, for rescheduled games. But if we start piling too many up in there, just like college ranks are dealing with right now, where do you go from there? And I think that's why that this plan was put on the table. And I think that the next step for the NFL, if these positives keep popping up and they can't keep putting out these little fires, is you're going to have to go to team bubbles. Okay, you play on Sunday, you fly back home, or if you're already home, you stay there and you just hang out in a hotel all week. You don't go home. And then you play that game, and then you just do that for the rest of the season, where you stay in your city until it's time to play the game or fly out to play the game, but you don't go home and go do your normal life, 5-6 days of the week. And I think that's the next step. And then obviously for the playoffs, maybe you can have bubbles depending on. But for college, it's starting. It's not just a matter of postponing a couple games, moving a couple games around, because now LSU Alabama has really thrown a huge monkey wrench in this. You're talking about one of the biggest games of the year, even if LSU is not really what we thought they were going to be, even with the lower expectations. LSU and Florida's game has already been in the reschedule week. So you can't go cram Alabama LSU in that reschedule week anymore unless you cancel that game. But then what do you tell Alabama? Oh, well, you got to go play LSU on the 12th, the week before the SEC championship, while Florida gets to put up their feet and practice all week and take naps and do their thing, So it's starting to it has a chain reaction is what my point is. And we know what Drink was alluding to was LSU's players had a Halloween party. It was a big Halloween party on campus, and this is their second major outbreak. Remember, 3 weeks ago, that when the Florida game was supposed to be played, they already were screwing around, and they had a whole bunch of cases. And now, like for Saturday, they're saying, we have no tight ends, we have one quarterback, we have the only defensive backs we have are who's starting, and we can't really put a team on the field. Well, that's because we're LSU. The difference is, like, again, Drink, you were talking about why is Alabama not have any cases or had limited cases and LSU has 2 giant outbreaks? Because Alabama's a contender. LSU isn't. That's exactly why. The teams that aren't contending anymore, see, everyone kind of had that little carrot on a stick at the start of the season. Hey, you play well, we'll be able to play. Well, now you lost 3 or 4 games. Who gives a crap anymore? You go out there and do whatever you want. I mean, season's already over. But that's going to start denying people limited chances to play in front of scouts. It's going to have it's having chain reactions down the line. So the SEC has got quite a conundrum, and the best thing I could say is they need to go ahead and let LSU and Alabama play, because that's still an SEC West game, and then Florida needs to go find someone to play, whether it's Florida State or go wake up USF or somebody, in the state to play them. Because it's going to start becoming unfair to some teams who are going to get extra time off, or you're going to have to start backing up the entire college football playoff and beyond, and that, again, starts having its own reactions down the line, and it's going to be a complete mess if they can't, get this under control.